out as a secular nation, not a Christian nation? I'm sorry, it wasn't. The people who founded the United States of America, who came to Massachusetts, Plymouth, they didn't come to get away from religion. They came because they thought that Britain wasn't religious enough. And they started their little religious utopias. They were passionate people. The whole basis for the First Amendment to the Constitution, so important that people understand this, was not to make America free of religion. It was to allow Quakers in Pennsylvania and Catholics in Maryland and Anglicans in Virginia and South Carolina and Congregationalists in Massachusetts and New Hampshire to allow all those different denominations to come together on common principles and common ground, without fearing that one denomination would take over and you'd start a corrupt religious establishment like the Church of England had become. That's why the First Amendment doesn't say there should be a wall of separation between church and state. It doesn't appear anywhere in the Constitution. It's a letter, private letter that Jefferson wrote to the Danbury Baptist Association. I have the whole story in the book. The point about the First Amendment, it says, Congress shall make no law respecting establishment of a religion. Namely, you can have established religions in New Hampshire, and they did. You couldn't vote in New Hampshire until 1824 unless you were a Christian. They didn't allow it. And unless you were a Protestant Christian, Catholics and Jews couldn't vote. Do I think that's a good idea? No, I think it's a very bad idea. Let the record show. We do not want to establish faith tests. In fact, they are now prohibited by the U.S. Constitution on a federal basis. However, they weren't prohibited on a state basis. Remember, they hadn't applied the Bill of Rights to the states yet. So this idea that somehow our founders wanted to bar any religious influence, it is absurd. You know what the best proof of it is? And it's one of those things, I have never been able to find somebody on the left who has a good answer to this one. The best proof is it is impossible to think of a patriotic song that doesn't mention God. It's not possible. This country has always been a God-centered society. That is our strength. Not one denomination, not one view of God, but a general acceptance that His hand is on this nation, that He protects us, and that we, whether we are Catholic or Protestant, Jewish or Mormon, or whatever we happen to be, that we accept the same core principles and accept the idea of a Father God who has a purpose for this nation. This idea of patriotic song, Star Spangled Banner, the last verse of the Star Spangled Banner, then conquer we must, for our cause it is just, and this be our motto, in God is our trust. And that's where they get it. That's where they get the slogan from, Francis Scott Key in 1814. America the Beautiful. America, America, God shed His grace on thee. Right? God is right there. Let's not even talk about God Bless America. How about My Country 'Tis of Thee? Last verse of My Country 'Tis of Thee. Our fathers, God, to Thee, author of liberty, to Thee we sing. Okay? Our fathers, God, to Thee. What about the Battle Hymn of the Republic? Boy, are you in big trouble there. The last verse of the Battle Hymn of the Republic. In the beauty of the lilies, Christ was born across the sea, with a glory in His bosom that transfigures you and me. As He died to make men holy, let us die to make men free. This is religious stuff. It's a religious country. And always has been. And what's the answer for the Republican Party? There are people out there, some people in the commentary, some people who do what I do, who say, well, the Republican Party, too much associated with the dreaded religious right. Okay, this is a deeply religious country. What we need to do as a party is not to give up our commitment to human life, certainly not at a time when more and more Americans see it. Look at the way that Americans responded to this horrendous case in Florida, where a baby at an abortion clinic, woman, 18-year-old girl, Gloria Williams, came in for an abortion. And while she's waiting for her abortion, the baby came out fully, and was writhing and gasping for air. And the Proprietor of the abortion clinic cut the umbilical cord, put the baby in a red biohazard bag, and threw it in the trash. And there is, in Florida, there is virtually unanimous pro-life, pro-choice, no matter what people are. This is wrong. Okay, so if this is wrong, 24-week-old baby in the womb, came out, writhing and gasping for air and then thrown in the trash, it's wrong, and they may actually indict for murder. If that is wrong, then it's okay if the same baby is killed by dismemberment, by the doctor going inside. Look, it is totally wrong for people to suggest that the Republican Party will gain traction by selling its soul, by giving up the commitment to human life that I remain convinced most Americans of every religion and no religion share. That is bad advice. And that is not the direction for our party. And it is not the direction for our party that Abraham Lincoln, or for that matter, old-time Republicans like Susan B. Anthony and old-time feminists would ever sanction. This party must never become a sectarian party, enshrining one religion or one religious denomination. But it must remain the party that recognizes that religion is a good influence on America in general, that supports the idea of faith and family as intrinsic and essential to freedom. It's a fascinating thing. We're talking today, it's not only the 200th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln, it's the 200th anniversary of Charles Darwin. One of the things that I was thinking, what do Darwin and Lincoln have in common other than the beard? Darwin had a much bigger beard. They both got it later in life. They both got famous in 1858, Darwin for his book on Origin of Species, and Lincoln for his debates with Douglas. What do they have in common? Born on the same day, February 12, 1809. They were both deeply committed to family. And they both came from faith-filled traditions. And what's so interesting about that is if you ever visit the Darwin House in Britain or the Lincoln House in Springfield, these two guys would have been comfortable in each other's houses. They were good middle-class people. Darwin was born into the middle class. Lincoln had to claw and scrape and struggle to get into the middle class and was so proud of it that he could build a house for his children. They both loved the joys of domesticity, of family. And they both tragically lost 3 of their children, for each of them died before adulthood. 3 of Darwin's 10 children, 3 of Lincoln's 4 sons. That's all haunting. But it goes to the basic values, the Victorian bourgeois middle-class values that so many people make fun of. They talk about Lincoln and Darwin, these 2 bearded revolutionaries. They weren't at all like people in the 20th century who are unhappy and miserable and have this idea that somehow Pablo Picasso, say, or somebody else was a great revolutionary who changes the world. The values, the stability, the wholesomeness of both men with difficult lives and different